Hello, my name is Chris Parham, and this is my projects for my mid-semester reviews here at the Mass College of Art. These projects are for my Foundation of Graphic Design course and also my prototype lab as well. So we're going to start off with my class for Foundations of Graphic Design, in which we had to do a bunch of different drawings with different words. So for instance, I had to use 4 cubes to describe joy, 4 cubes to describe increase, 4 cubes to describe bold, congestion, friendship, and shyness. So what I did was I ended up going along with shyness as a final project. And I primarily did this because what I wanted to show was how, for instance, like to show the word shy by using 4 blocks, you basically hide everything. And that's kind of like what I did in all 3 of these examples. So for instance, the one to the right, I've got 4 squares cropped. The one in the middle, same thing. And then the one on the right as well. And this basically had to do with, like I said, when we started this project, we had to do a bunch of different drawings using 4 blocks to describe a specific word. So that's the word that I went with for my final project, was the word shy. And then the next project I did for the class was the next project I did actually was we had to do screenshots for an object that we had to draw. So for instance, these are my different screenshots that I did for a bottle that I used. So we have a bunch of different crops and a bunch of different things, different things going on in terms of the different shades, drawing with the pencil, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to show everything, but I just want to show an example of what we were doing with this specific project. And then my next project has to do with how we use the drawing and how to do gestures, graphic, simplified, and radical. So we had to come up with 3 different things, 3 different of our best designs concerning a gesture, concerning a graphic design of the specific object thing that we drew, a simplified version, and also a radical version. So for instance, over here, as you can see, I've got the horse on there, and then I've got this going on with the stripes, and the same thing with this as well. And I basically tried to get across the idea of how do you create a gesture, graphic, simplified, radical? How do you do all those things and keep the design the way it should be, the way it normally is? So what I did was I felt that I had to put things on a background, of course, and then simplified would be making the bottle a little bit bigger and so on. And this, again, was my final project for this class, for this specific project for Foundations of Graphic Design. And also, excuse me. I apologize, folks. Again, like I said, this was one of the main projects that I did for the class. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to, and I'm going to show some other things as well for the foundations class. But what we're going to do right now is that we're going to go directly into the prototyping lab course and show you the project that I'm working on. And I apologize, folks. This is a new program and it takes time. So I apologize. This project deals with the project that I was working with last year, which talked about a blues box. And what this project is an extension of is that project from last year. And what you're looking at, for instance, the red part of this is the cave painting from Western Africa. So I've got at least 3 examples that I'd like to show. And the point of this project deals with the fact of me saying, when certain tribes were calling for war, when they were calling for hunting, when they were calling for weddings, when they were calling for the king and the queen, were they, is that directly, or could that be directly related to the founding of blues music? So for instance, here I've got a bunch of different instruments. Here I've got the djembe, which is an African drum. I've got the banjo right here. I've got the noji, which is basically a string guitar. And this is the also this is a trumpet basically, And this right here is what is basically called a balafon in Western Africa. So over here we have the stand-up bass, we have the acoustic guitar, we have the trumpet at the top, and we also have another African instrument up here as well. So my point is with this project, these things are going to go directly inside of the blues box that I had built last year. So I'm going to have 6 African instruments and 6 American instruments that deal specifically with whether or not did the blues originate in Africa and then move to the Mississippi Delta. So this is one example. I'd like to show another one as well. So what this does is that it saves it. So I have like 2 or 3 other examples I want to quickly show. And this is another example of a cave painting. And see, the cave painting that I have here, just like with the other one, talks about music. It talks about calling out for the king, calling out for the queen, calling out if there's a birth, calling out for hunting, if there's going to be a war. So that's what I really liked about using the cave paintings, excuse me. And I wanted to show what it looks like in the CAD example as well. When you see, I basically have all the same instruments as I did in the other one as well. And I really wanted to get across the point of how are those two things interconnected in terms of traditional African traditions dealing with music and also war and so on, but also how do they relate to the blues? How do they relate to call and response, the Mississippi Delta, slave songs, and so on? So I wanted to connect the two in terms of showing basically that African instruments basically became American instruments, like the banjo, for instance, and also the stand-up bass. And the stand-up bass in Western Africa is called the sitar, I believe, and also the xylophone, the balafon, which is basically a xylophone, you know. So I'm going to basically show one more example real fast. And this one as well, I really like the way that the colors work with these cave paintings, especially. So, and this is doing kind of the same thing. So what I'm going to be doing with this project is I'm going to be having it hooked up to a computer, and I'm going to have it using a circuit playground as well. And I will be able to have the user play different notes of these specific instruments, of the balafon, excuse me, or the djembe, okay, or the African trumpet as well, which is usually used for war and so on, calling for war and that type of thing. And again, the background is a cave painting from Western Africa. I think at least 10,000 years old, at least, something like that. So I've got the trumpet going on up here. I've got my stand-up bass happening. I've got my djembe. I've got all these different instruments. And I'm just basically trying to connect the two in terms of the traditions in Africa. How were they done in terms of how do they call for war? How do they call for, and is it any way at all related to, to music, excuse me. But that's kind of like where I'm at with this project because again, I'm going to be making this out of wood. The same thing that I did with my other project where I'm going to have it hooked up to a computer, 6 circuit playground for the African instruments and a circuit playground for the American instruments. And so the user will be able to play the specific notes. And I just want to see if there is a correlation between the two in terms of African music and also blues and later on jazz as well, because they had bass guitars, they had stringed instruments, and so on. So it's really, really interesting for me just to see exactly how this works in terms of how do I make that, I'm trying to make that argument, but I need to have a lot more proof to make that argument and to make it work. This project is going to be, the project's going to be kind of big in terms of me being able to fit everything in one box. So I'm going to have the cave painting as a base, and then I'm going to have pictures of other instruments, both African instruments and also blues musicians and also African musicians as well, playing their instruments. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.